Hi everyone, I'm Damien and welcome to Devils Chat. Are the Tassie Devils about to pull off their finest win of the season away from home? Or are the Seagulls from Melbourne's western suburbs about to make our push for the finals just that much more difficult? If the Devils win, they can jump as high as third on the VFL ladder. If they lose, they could tumble all the way down to 10th. That's how tight the ladder is at the top. This game is going to be absolutely pivotal in the push for finals for the Devils. It's the most crucial game of the season so far, in my opinion. And if you stick around, I'll tell you why I think that. On the channel today, it's a match preview of the Tasmanian Devils versus the Williamstown Seagulls. The match is on Saturday afternoon at Williamstown Oval in Melbourne. But just before we jump into the preview, just a note for our subscribers who entered the prize giveaway competition of the Devils jacket. I'll be doing a live wheel spin this Thursday night, the 16th of July at 7:15 p.m, just before the AFL match starts on Thursday night. So join us for that. So let's talk about the game and the form guide. Williamstown are 10th on the VFL ladder, only 4 points behind the Devils, who are 7th. And Williamstown had a fantastic start to this year. They won 5 of their first 6 games. And at one stage, they were as high as second on the VFL ladder. But since then, they've only won 2 games out of the last 8. So they've really fallen off a lot. Their form has dipped due to some injuries to key players, and they also had 2 of their best players drafted in the mid-season draft to AFL clubs. But they did manage a fantastic draw last week in Sydney against the Swans, which suggests they played very well last week in Sydney. The Devils' form, on the other hand, in Melbourne this year has been extremely good. We've played 4 games in Melbourne and only lost once. And that loss was a 4-point thriller against Port Melbourne that the Devils really should have won in the end. Williamstown have lost 3 home games this season. So it's not really a home fortress for them, which means there is really nothing for the Devils to fear in going to Williamstown this week. But don't get me wrong, Williamstown will be very difficult. They do have a lot of ex-AFL players. I mean, I think I've counted at least 6 ex-AFL players on their list, but there's probably more. Here's a list of the players that I found with AFL experience on their list. David Cunningham, ex-Carlton, 58 games. Aidan Bonner, ex-North Melbourne. Braden Pruce, ex-GWS in Melbourne. Cam Polson, ex-Carlton. Callan Dawson, ex-North Melbourne. And Luke Parks, also ex-Carlton. And there was also a big Tasmanian connection at Williamstown. Does anybody know what that connection is? It's their coach, Justin Plapp, the ex-Bernie Docker and ex-Penguin 2 Blue star, also ex-Richmond and St Kilda star. Let's hope he's not too successful this week coaching against the Devils. Okay, do you know where the Williamstown Oval is? Or, as it's called these days, DSV Stadium. It's right on the very tip of Point Gellibrand in Williamstown, on the edge of Port Phillip Bay. It's an extremely windy location. It's so windy that the wind there even has a name. It's known as the Willy Wind, and it can blow extremely hard. So that could make things very interesting, especially for the Devils, who won't be used to that. So what do the Devils have to do this week to get the win? For me, I see at least two key things. And number one, we need to start well this week. We cannot afford to be slow out of the blocks like we were against the Hawks and the Suns. And we've actually done that a lot recently too. I think I counted where the Devils have lost 5 first quarters out of their last 7 games. If we give Williamstown a 5-goal head start, it's likely all over. They know that ground so well, and as I just mentioned, they know the wind conditions extremely well. We must win the first quarter this week, or at least be within a goal or two. Is that a fair call? What do you think? And number 2, for a win this week, we need to focus on what we do well. And for the Devils, that's tackling and aggression. The Devils are actually ranked number 2 in the VFL for tackling. That's pretty impressive, I think. And we all saw what happened against the Gold Coast Suns and the Hawks when the Devils brought their tackling pressure. The game totally changed on the back of that. So bring that same aggression, and there's a big chance for a win this week against Williamstown. Okay, so let's talk team selection for this week. Unfortunately, there were some injuries last week and to some of our key players. Jai Menzie has a hip flexor injury and he's expected to be out for the next 3 to 4 weeks. That's a huge blow for the Devils. That's massive. And Caleb Mitchell, he picked up an ankle injury and he won't play either. And Max Roney was a late withdrawal from last week's team with a recurrence of his quad injury. I'm also not too sure about Robbie Fox. He hasn't played 2 games in a row many times this year. So there will certainly be some changes this week. And who do we think is going to replace Jai Menzie and Caleb Mitchell? I mean, maybe it's Darcy Gardner and Harry Bales. The other 2 names that come to mind for me. Or do they give another chance to Riley McHenry? Or do they give a debut to some youngsters who have been in really good form at local level recently, such as a Lucas Wooten or a Sam Green or a Max Gapin? If Jai Menzie and Caleb Mitchell are both out, who would you be bringing in this week as their replacements? Let me know in the comments down below. All right, so on the back of that, how are the confidence levels with you all this week? How are you all feeling? Confident or not so much? For this match against Williamstown in Melbourne, out of 10, I'm a 2. Yes, that's very low. Those 2 injuries to our 2 key midfielders, it's not good. Do I think we can win? Absolutely I do. But we have to play to our absolute very best form. And as I said earlier, our form in Melbourne over 4 games this year has been good. But am I tipping the Devils this week? Put it this way. With Jai Menzie and Caleb Mitchell both out, it makes it very hard. Others have to step up and fill that void of possessions and goals. But against Williamstown, away, with those 2 guys out, I think the Devils fall short by 17 points. I don't want to say that, but honestly, that's how I see it. I want the Devils to smash them, but just being realistic in what I think in light of those 2 huge injuries. What's your prediction for this week? Do we win? Who steps up in the void of those two guys missing out? Drop your predictions below in the comments. Okay, I'll be doing a match review after the game, Sunday or Monday. If you enjoyed today's preview, click the video on your screen now for our latest Tasmania Devils news. And if you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that match review. You can subscribe to the channel by clicking the Devils Chat logo here. Thanks for joining today. I'll see you in the next one. Go Devils.